Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic. Let's do it. What's the one story you've always wanted to tell on Ask Reddit, but no one's asked the right question? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. A friend from grad school had previously been a skydiving instructor in Colorado and had jumped more than 600 times. One of these times, he, for some reason, had his wallet in his suit and it fell out. Fell to earth somewhere. He figured, this sucks, but oh well. Absolutely no chance of finding it. Separately, a man in rural Colorado was found murdered. Turns out, in their remote cabin where he lived with his daughter, he had been SAing her and she finally had enough and killed him. The police searched the house and all of his property and found my friend's wallet in the trunk of his car. Police thought to themselves, effing idiot murderer left his wallet in the dude's trunk. Damn easy as the rest ever. Friend had this super believable alibi of, couldn't have been me, officer. Actually, that wallet fell out of my pants while I was skydiving. I was once robbed at gunpoint in a public bus. Dude was talking to me like he was my friend while pointing the gun at me. He only asked me for the cash I had in my wallet, and after I gave it to him, he kept talking to me like we were random commuters having a conversation. Dude got more confident and asked for my phone. I said, no, not the phone, man. I need it. And he was like, fine, it's okay. Don't worry, we chill. 10 out of 10 would be assaulted by him again. Okay, so I was never a sporty kid in school. I come from the country parts of Ireland, where everyone has thick accents, drinks Guinness, and most importantly, everyone loves football. Of course, I was an antisocial F who never went outside, so I never learned how to play nor wanted to. So one day in primary school, the teachers made us all play football. Since I didn't know how to play, I decided to just stand awkwardly near the goal and admire the scenery for the whole game. At one point, I became so absorbed in doing absolutely nothing that I pretty much blocked out the sound of everyone else's voices, so I had no idea how the game was going. Towards the end of the game, I was getting rather tired and was basically half asleep when suddenly this effing incredible pain hits my back. I fall over and I literally have no idea what just happened, when suddenly some of the kids on my team went over to me and started cheering and saying, "Yeah, Egg, good job." I just kinda stood there for a moment before realizing what had just happened. Apparently, I had just accidentally blocked the opposition's winning goal by just standing there and doing absolutely nothing. TL, DR, if you want to accomplish your dreams and be praised, all you have to do is absolutely nothing. I mean, maybe not the best advice, but a good story. And, a broken clock is right twice a day sort of scenario, but good for her. My husband, then boyfriend, and I were driving to his place. He had one of those cars where the front seat had one combined long seat up front. I had moved over to sit right next to him, and he had his arm wrapped around me. At one point I glanced over to my right, and there was a van full of clowns. They were miming, making out at us. Like 3 clowns in their front seat. They pulled away laughing. I like to walk quickly, but one day I encountered somebody ahead of me whose walking pace matched mine, possibly even beat it, so I went faster. I strained my ankles, my arms began to swing wildly, but I did it. I eventually overtook her. To assert my walking speed dominance in the most futile way possible, I didn't duck or avoid any of the low-hanging branches that were ahead of me. I plowed straight through them, face first, without flinching. I kept my uncomfortably fast, swinging arm walk run up until I was sure I was out of sight again. Nobody beats my walking pace. Nobody. I accidentally stole a car. I had just gotten off work. I was working 2 jobs at the time and I got barely any sleep. I walked out and got into my car, started it up, and started driving home. I didn't realize something was wrong until I couldn't find my aux cord, and then I started realizing that there were things in the car that were not mine, like the child seat in the back. I was an 18-year-old with no kids. I flip a U-turn and bust ass back to work to hopefully get the car back before its owner notices it's gone. I didn't. Cops were there, and I was very quickly arrested. Owner dropped charges only after 3 things were done. 1. Showed my keys unlocked and started her car, then pointed to my car, which was the same model, color, and year. One of my coworkers vouched for the fact that the customer parked in the spot I almost always parked in. 3. Camera footage was pulled for the last 9 days and worked, showing that I had 7 of those days I parked in that spot, and the other 2 I parked close to it. Once when I was 8 years old, I was running through the forest. Suddenly, I got pulled back by something. I didn't know what, but it didn't hurt. I called for my dad, and when he came, he gasped and said that I should move. He then proceeded to remove a fishing hook that was in my skin right next to my eye. 1 more millimeter to the left, and I would have been blind with 1 eye for the rest of my life. I once got a beer using a McLovin ID from the movie Superbad. I was 20 from the US, so still underage. I was on a business trip and was waiting for my flight when I decided to get dinner at one of the airport restaurants. The waitress asks me what I'll have to drink, and I ask what's on tap because why the F not? I order a Corona, but she asks for my ID, so I hand her my McLovin ID, best $4 I've ever spent. She looks at it, smiles, and says, okay, and comes back with my beer. The cherry on top was when she came back a couple minutes later with another beer and gave it to me for free, saying she had accidentally poured an extra. That was the best moment of my otherwise uneventful and vanilla life. Fogel forever. I love this. So there's probably 2 outcomes. She obviously saw the ID and said, oh, this is this young man from Hawaii. Or she's seen the movie and just gave it to you for the pure audacity of the movement, so cool. 6th grade. I had hit a major growth spurt, so most of my clothes didn't fit, and my family couldn't afford new ones. Once winter came around, the only jacket I had that I could still fit in, even a bit, was much too thin to be of any use. My teacher noticed, and I walked into class one morning to see a big fluffy winter coat on the back of my chair and a Chicken Soup for the Soul book on my desk. Her kindness still makes my eyes water, even almost 2 decades later. My cat went missing one October. We back up to a large farm with tobacco and cornfields, and I suspected he was out there. He was. So I would go out onto the farm late at night to see if he would come to me. When it was quiet and peaceful, he would not. I had to catch that jerk in a have-a-heart trap after 15 days. I'm out there one night because the moon is full and visibility is better than usual, although it's still a cornfield at midnight, so pretty dark. I was pretty close to the edge of the cornfield with my back to the fence, separating it from the next farm over. It was eerie being out there. If you were still, you could hear 1,000 mice scuttling around in the corn all around you, and the weird creaking sound corn makes, and the rustling of the leaves, and that's all. Except then I heard a footstep behind me. I paused. I didn't hear anything. I was so sure it had been a footstep, I walked forward. There it was again, 20, 30 feet behind me, one soft but distinct footfall. I was unarmed, a girl, alone in a cornfield, being followed. It was pretty much the dumbest I've ever felt. I was like, wow, I'm about to be murdered while looking for my stupid cat. And then I clutched my flashlight close, took a deep breath, and turned around suddenly. There were about 15 horses standing there, just on the other side of the fence, staring at me. When I turned the flashlight on them, they scattered like cockroaches and thundered back to their barn. I guess they had noticed me creeping through the field next door, and they all crept over to see what I was up to in near total silence. I swear, all I heard out of those horses before they galloped away was 2 small footsteps. When I was a 5-year-old child, I liked to spend a lot of time in my parents' room, and one particular morning I had found a cool little elephant mask. Naturally, I decided to play with it and put it on my face to show my mom. The horrified look on her face is what makes me remember this. However, She did laugh a little after she immediately took the mask off of my face. TLDR. 5-year-old me found my dad's elephant thong in my parents' room and put it on my face. I never knew what it was until I was 13. I live in a small rural town. When I was 7, my parents let my older sister and I ride our bikes about 3.5 miles into town to get lunch at the only restaurant in town, which my mom's cousin owns. I didn't realize how long of a ride 3.5 miles was, and was hot and tired and crabby, and burned my tongue on my burger, so I threw a fit and refused to ride my bike home. A stranger overheard my sister and I arguing about this and offered me a ride home. He said he could just put my bike in the back of his truck and everything would be fine. My sister agreed because she didn't want to have to call my parents to come pick us up, and she was tired of my whining. And also, she was 10 years old and dumb. I realized on the drive home that I hadn't given the man directions or told him my name, but he somehow knew my name and where I lived. He dropped me off at home, helped me put the bike in the garage, and then drove down the road to go visit my grandparents. It turns out the man was my grandpa's brother, one of 12 siblings. He recognized me because I looked just like my mom did at that age. You know, I read so many of these stories, and if it starts where some person offered me a ride home and I got in their car, typically that's not a good ending. But, you know, sometimes a small town, you just meet your great uncle. This is one of my favorite memories from high school. I was in AP English, and we were doing silent reading. I was chewing my way through an 18-pack of gum, twisting the foil wrappers around the tips of my fingers into spikes and passing them to the punk kid behind me when I was finished. I don't know why, I just did. At some point, I'd given him enough for him to cap all 10 fingers. He jumped out of his seat, wiggling his tinfoil-covered hands in the air, shouted, "The revolution is upon us," and ran out of the room. He came back about 20 minutes later. The teacher looked at him and said, "Did you have a nice break, Diego?" He nodded and went to sit back down. I had been working a job under the table and was let go. They gave me a month's pay in cash as severance. I was in shock, and not having internet at the time, this was in dinosaur times before iPhones, went to a local internet cafe downtown, run by the same company that runs EasyJet actually, to update friends and family on what happened. As I'm typing, I noticed someone in my peripheral vision crouching down by my chair. I'd like to think the suddenness of having lost my job is why it takes a minute for it to click. I look down and my backpack is missing. I turn and see the guy heading upstairs to the ground floor and the exit. Not really thinking things through, I tear after the guy. I get to the top of the stairs and see him walking outside and have a moment of panic that he's going to hand my bag off to an accomplice. But no, I managed to catch up to him and, again, not really considering how badly this could backfire, grab him and start yelling at him. Fortunately, he didn't have a weapon, which was extremely lucky for me. Instead, he silently gave me back my bag and then just walked away up the street. I was so hyped up on adrenaline that I just stood there shaking for a while before I went back inside to finish up. When I got back to the chair, I double-checked that my personal stuff, like a digital camera, were still there, because I had heard sometimes they'll snake what they can from it in the first case, in case they get caught. Fortunately, everything was there, including the envelope with my severance in it. I had totally forgotten about it up until that point. It was basically the only time I've ever carried that much cash on me, almost $2,000. And it happened to be the day I was almost robbed. My boss graduated from the same school I'm currently a senior at, and one time he told me about how he was accidentally involved in a bomb threat. So him and his buddies would play football on the school field when school wasn't in session, and one time there were people doing a photo op on the field and they left their camera case. My boss, thinking it would be a kind gesture, brought the case to the main entrance so the people could come back for it. Next time he was in school, he was waiting in the cafeteria for the first bell to ring, but Staff told them to stay in the cafeteria. Apparently, they thought the camera case was a bomb when it was clearly not. A few weeks ago, I was visiting Los Angeles. I'm from Spain, but I'm fluent in English. I needed help finding directions to a certain address. I'm in downtown at this point on foot. I ask a guy on the street if he knows where the address is. He responds with, "No hablo inglés," which is, "I don't speak English" in Spanish. Being from Spain, I understood him and asked him again in Spanish. And he says in crystal clear English, "Dude, I just don't want to talk to anyone. Leave me alone." So my family used to do a shit ton of road trips. We would drive about 14 hours every major holiday to see family. On the way there, there's this wonderful Italian restaurant. Amazing food, but the portions are always so huge that we never finish the food. Well, we had leftovers on the drive home, and my sister decided she was hungry. Also, she wasn't wearing pants. Don't remember why not, but she wasn't. Well, she was hungry, so she decided to eat some of the leftovers. What did she do? She goes and spills the entire carton of leftover pasta onto her underwear. We all start screaming because we have nothing to clean the pasta up with. So my sisters decide to use her underwear to clean up the spaghetti. Well, now we have spaghetti and underwear, which isn't very helpful. So what do we do with the spaghetti underwear? We throw it out the window. The underwear hit a car and splatters the windshield with spaghetti. I'm really glad we don't go there on road trips anymore. One time in second grade, we were taking a state standardized test. That means all day no talking and filling in bubbles. One kid who sat across from me, who I haven't heard say a word all year, this was the end of the year, stands up in the middle of the test in complete silence and says in almost a shout, "Has anyone seen Aladdin?" I reply, "The movie?" The kid says, "What movie?" in quite the inquisitive tone, and sits back down and goes back to taking the test as if it just didn't happen. Everyone was shocked, including the teacher. No one said a word after that. Weirdest moment of my life. So when I was very young, they released a large number of pedo from jail in one go in my town. This led to my mother explaining to her vocabulary proficient 3-year-old toddler what a pedo was, and that they're bad people who want to hurt little kids. Well, a couple of weeks later, I get lost in the mall. My parents start frantically looking and hear me screaming, "Pedophile" at the top of my lungs. They race over, and it's this little old lady who had tried to ask me if I was not. Eventually, she was mortified. It's been 24 years, and it's still brought up at family functions. A story about why peacocks are assholes. Years ago, I lived in an apartment near a park that had caged peacocks. One escaped and started hanging out outside my apartment building. He would stay outside the door of the lobby and jump on everyone that was trying to get in or out like an effing maniac. He would also jump in front of cars trying to get them out of the garage. I honestly hesitated going out a couple times before because of the peacock block. Don't be fooled by their feathers. These assholes are heartless like a Canadian winter. An old lady would always bring food to any old sick stray cat that I saw, and monitor pushing the cat away and steal the food. Someone eventually took care of it after 3 days. I hope it became a TV star on the rotisserie channel. I was with 2 of my friends around midnight. We were in high school at the time, and we were going to pull into the parking lot of the park to smoke weed while sitting in the car. We had been here several times before, and it was private enough where nobody ever bothered us. This night, we pull up and we see a group of people just walking across the parking lot from one side to the other and into the pitch black field. They weren't together, but almost 30 people throughout the parking lot just walking in the same direction. They looked like they were from all walks of life, a construction worker, kids, a grandma, all different looking people. As we pulled into the lot, and my friend's car shined their headlights on some of the people, nobody turned around to look at us. They just kept walking without breaking eye contact with the field. TL, DR. I went to a park to smoke weed with friends and came across a cult of possible group of zombies.